I never thought I'd see something like this.
You will become enhanced humans. Supermen.
In the year 2048, Earth is overcrowded and nearly drained of its natural resources. To ensure humanity's survival, the government launches a bold program, genetically modifying 14 selected soldiers who will travel to Titan, Saturn's moon, to begin a new civilization. These chosen individuals and their families are moved into a private, high-tech neighborhood filled with modern, luxurious homes. Among the volunteers is Rick, a former pilot, accompanied by his wife Abigail, a doctor, and their young son Lucas. Dr. Collingwood, the head of the program, has great faith in Rick's potential. Years earlier, Rick survived being shot down in the Syrian desert, managing to stay alive for 3 days without food or water, a true sign of his strength and resilience. Rick and Abigail join the project with one goal in mind: to secure a better future for Lucas. Still, Abigail privately confides in Dr. Collingwood that she's worried the genetic treatment might make Rick seriously ill. Collingwood acknowledges the risk but assures her that with proper care, Rick will be fine. Once all the participants settle into their new homes, they gather for their first official meeting with Dr. Collingwood. He begins with a presentation explaining the dire state of Earth and the vision behind the Titan mission. Titan, he explains, is the only other world in our solar system with an atmosphere and signs of a primitive ecosystem. But it's far from hospitable. Its freezing surface is covered in lakes and seas of liquid methane, and its nitrogen-rich air is unbreathable for humans. Rather than attempting to transform Titan to fit human life, scientists plan to transform humans instead, modifying their bodies to survive Titan's extreme environment. One volunteer raises a concern about whether their bodies will reject the genetic changes. Collingwood admits that while the clinical trials have shown success, there's no absolute guarantee that everyone will survive the process. The volunteer keeps questioning the program, but Rick quickly cuts him off and tells him to leave if he doesn't like it. The volunteers have come from different parts of the world, each chosen because they survived extreme life situations. After the meeting, they receive key cards giving them full access to the base and are taken to the lab for their first injection, one of 300 they'll receive over the next few weeks. Dr. Freya tries to explain what each injection does, but Rick only understands part of it. Soon after, Rick's family settles into a new routine. Lucas goes to school, Abigail takes care of the house, and whenever she's allowed, she sits beside Rick during his treatments. The volunteers quickly grow close and start spending time together outside the base. Since they live nearby, they often host dinners and barbecues. Sometimes, their conversations take a darker turn, like when one volunteer admits he fears they won't be allowed to return after their 2-year mission on Titan. During one of these gatherings, the group drinks heavily, knowing it's their last chance to have alcohol. That night, Abigail feels dizzy from drinking, so Rick helps her upstairs. But soon, he starts coughing uncontrollably and struggles to breathe. When Abigail touches him, she realizes he's burning with fever. She immediately gives him medicine, helps him into bed, and stays with him through the night. Later, Dr. Collingwood is thrilled with how well the volunteers' DNA is adapting. He decides it's time for a major test. The volunteers must stay underwater without oxygen tanks. After 30 minutes, only Rick and Tally remain. They turn it into a friendly competition. Tally lasts 39 minutes, but Rick keeps going. To everyone's shock, he doesn't just survive, he starts swimming effortlessly, moving at incredible speed like a dolphin. That evening, Rick proudly shows this new ability to his son in their garden pool. Afterward, he tucks Lucas into bed, and the boy sweetly mentions how much his late grandfather would have loved to see all this. Rick then joins Abigail in the pool for some romantic time, but she suddenly stops when she notices black veins spreading across his body. Rick looks confused, and just as quickly, the veins disappear. Abigail decides not to say anything. A few days later, the volunteers undergo their first surgery. During that time, Rain, one of the other wives, visits Abigail with her kids. She admits she's terrified and feels her husband doesn't belong in the program. Abigail comforts her, reminding her that their husbands are doing this to save humanity, and their children's future. Abigail felt relieved to see Rick doing well, but she couldn't shake her worry about the possible side effects mentioned in the manual they had been given. Later that night, she woke to find the bed empty. Rick was in the kitchen, applying ice to his skin because he felt unusually hot. Abigail prepared a larger bucket of cold water for him, and Rick suggested a small challenge. They both placed their hands in the bucket. Abigail had to remove hers after a few minutes, unable to tolerate the cold, while Rick kept his hands submerged, showing that he no longer felt the chill. The next morning, they went for a run together, pausing at a scenic spot by the road to take in the stunning view. Rick expressed his frustration at not being able to save the planet. The experiments continued, including runs with masks simulating Titan's atmosphere and long swims in freezing water. Sometimes, volunteers couldn't handle the conditions and had to stop for the day. Callie, however, was determined and stubbornly stayed in the icy water despite struggling. Rick taught her to meditate underwater to cope. One afternoon, after the tests, the volunteers were in the showers when Rick noticed he was losing hair. Tally confirmed that she was experiencing the same issue. Suddenly, screams filled the area. They found a woman having a seizure and vomiting blood. The doctors rushed to help, but they were unable to save her. The group experienced their first loss. Later, the volunteers gathered to discuss the tragedy. Some were fearful for their own safety, while others reminded them that the risks were always known. To ease the tension, they decided to drink despite the warnings. While Ryan comforted her husband Zane outside, Tally's husband, Andrew, helped Abigail in the kitchen. He shared the story of his relationship with Tally and how he had fought to be with her. Tally joined them, noting that Andrew was now eager to start a family. During dinner, Abigail noticed that all the volunteers' veins occasionally turned black. Suddenly, screams erupted from the garden. Zane was having a breakdown and attacking Ryan. The other men rushed to restrain him while Abigail took Ryan to safety. The following day, Freya arrived with additional medicine meant to prevent the same dangerous reactions that had affected the woman and Zane. Abigail noticed that some of the doses were quite high and wanted to speak with Collingwood, but he was unavailable. Later that evening, Rick began vomiting, including blood. Abigail instructed him to rest and quietly collected a sample of his blood while he wasn't looking. After locking all the doors, Abigail finally notices hidden cameras in the house, revealing that the program organizers are watching the volunteers around the clock. The next time Rick uses the pool, he notices his skin is peeling, though he doesn't seem overly concerned. That night, when Abigail sees his hair falling out and the state of his skin, her worry intensifies. The following day, Abigail examines Rick's blood under a microscope and discovers it is turning black. Soon after, the volunteers undergo a major procedure to modify their eyes to resemble a cat's, allowing them to see in the dark. The surgery is successful, but Rick must keep his eyes bandaged for some time, relying on his family for support around the house. One night, Abigail hears Rick groaning in pain as his eyes begin to bleed. They rush him back to the lab for another surgery. Concerned, Abigail confronts Collingwood, insisting that something alive seems to be inside Rick and that she knows about the cameras. Collingwood explains that the cameras were required by the Pentagon for security and reassures her that his temporary blindness is part of the process and will heal in a few days. Although Abigail suspects he is hiding more, Collingwood sends her home. Back at her house, Abigail begins packing clothes for Rick when sirens suddenly blare outside. Stepping out, she sees the army surrounding Zane's home. Though kept at a distance, she witnesses a horrifying scene. A mutated Zane throws Ryan through a window, killing her instantly. Soldiers storm the house and shoot Zane dead. Later at the base, Abigail watches over Rick as more soldiers arrive. With Collingwood occupied, she seizes the opportunity to sneak around, using Rick's card key to access restricted areas. Hiding strategically to avoid security, she enters Collingwood's office and discovers files revealing that the volunteers are having animal DNA infused into their own to achieve a new evolutionary step, which Collingwood calls Homo Titanians. Meanwhile, Collingwood meets with Colonel Solano and NASA representatives, who argue that the program is unproven and increasingly dangerous, noting that volunteers are turning violent. The concern is that the project is crossing into criminal territory, reminiscent of experiments conducted by the Nazis. Solano demands the experiment be shut down, but Collingwood and his advisor explain that the defense ministers have the final say. After the meeting, Frey warns Collingwood to stop, but he dismisses her concerns. When Rick is sent home, Collingwood explains that his sight will return within 24 hours. The volunteers' brains had simply overloaded from processing enhanced senses, causing Zane's tragic reaction. A new procedure could correct this. Abigail, frustrated, demands the full truth, prompting Collingwood to finally admit that animal DNA injections are being used on the volunteers. He acknowledges the risks but emphasizes that these dangers were known from the start. Rick must undergo the new procedure to survive, which distresses Abigail, causing her to keep her distance for a time. A day later, Rick removes his bandages and confirms his sight is fully restored, shaving his head to prevent bald spots. That night, he discovers he can see every detail in complete darkness and calls Collingwood to confirm he will continue the process. Meanwhile, while families remain at home, the other volunteers undergo surgery, but complications arise, and most do not survive. In the end, only Rick and Tally remain alive and in good health. The next day, Andrew, Abigail, and Lucas visit them, only to be shocked. Rick and Tally have transformed into strange, mutated beings who communicate only through touch and a low-frequency sound humans cannot hear. Rick presses his hand against the glass separating them, causing Abigail to cry. Her sorrow deepens when Collingwood hands her Rick's wedding ring. In a few days, Tally and Rick are scheduled to leave for Titan, but for now, they are allowed to stay at home. Rick struggles to wear human clothes, and when Abigail tries to help, he accidentally hits her. Although he tries to check on her, Abigail is now so frightened that she instinctively pulls away from his touch. Rick spends most of his time in the pool, where he feels more at ease than in the house. One night, after putting Lucas to bed, Abigail looks outside and sees Tally entering the garden with her hand covered in blood. Rick seems unfazed and approaches Tally so they can communicate through tentacle-like appendages emerging from their fingers. At that moment, the army arrives in the neighborhood and discovers Andrew dead in the shower. They begin approaching Abigail's house, prompting her to hide upstairs with Lucas. Soldiers shoot Tally with tranquilizer darts, requiring several shots to bring her down. But Tally soon reveals she is still awake and uses her tentacles to kill one soldier. The others immediately open fire. When they attempt to go after Rick, he effortlessly knocks them out with his enhanced strength. Rick tries to drown the last soldier in the pool. Abigail hears the struggle and rushes out to stop him, but it is too late. Realizing what he has done, Rick flees. Colonel Solano orders his team to track Rick, ignoring Collingwood's pleas to spare him due to his value as research. Abigail and Lucas are taken to a secure base for their safety. However, Abigail soon leaves when she discovers Rick's location. Ensuring she is not followed, she reaches their special meeting spot and finds him there. She offers her hand to show she is no longer afraid, and when Rick's tentacles wrap around her wrist, she kisses him. At that moment, Army helicopters arrive and incapacitate them both. Abigail later awakens at the base, with Collingwood by her side. He explains that their injuries were necessary for their own safety. The Pentagon has decided to shut down the program, meaning Rick must be sent to Titan immediately, as Tally has proven that Earth's atmosphere could either drive them insane or be fatal to their new bodies. However, they cannot force Rick, as it may kill him. Abigail must convince him to go willingly. She is then taken to see Rick, who is held inside a glass cage. Collingwood instructs Abigail to give Rick a shot of quetiapine, a chemical that will erase his memories and act as a lobotomy. Abigail hesitates but understands it is the only way to ensure he leaves safely. A soldier hands her the injection. She enters the cage, exchanging a meaningful look with him, and then administers the shot, causing Rick to fall unconscious. When Abigail comes out, she asks Freya to come along, while the soldier approaches Rick to prepare him for the trip. But Rick is only pretending to be unconscious and seizes the moment to kill the soldier. It is then that Collingwood realizes Abigail had grabbed saline from the drawer while the soldier wasn't looking. That's what she gave to Rick. The soldiers open fire, but Rick runs and hides in dark rooms, giving him an advantage. Abigail goes to rescue Lucas, and Freya guides them to a secret exit, where they reunite with a badly wounded Rick. Lucas and Abigail hug him, showing once again that they are not afraid. Freya looks for medicine, but suddenly all the soldiers appear. Collingwood orders the women to leave or everyone will be shot, but Abigail refuses. Furious, he tells the soldiers to open fire, but Solano steps forward, refusing to shoot two unarmed women and an innocent child. He points his gun at Collingwood, and the other soldiers follow his lead. As Collingwood is arrested, Abigail rushes to Rick's side. Her embrace helps him strengthen his most cherished memories. Later, Abigail and Freya become researchers on the Titan II project, using ethical methods to work toward saving the world. Meanwhile, Rick is sent to Titan, where he discovers his new body has wings, allowing him to fly freely in his new home. If you enjoyed this The Titan 2018 movies full recap, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more videos like this, and thanks for watching.